Howdy. In a previous episode, we placed bolts that were threaded into the slots, and today we are actually going to place nuts on the back of those. So we're going straight into the McMaster car component library, and we are looking for nuts. We will use the hex variety, and it's important that we scroll down to the high strength because we don't want cheap products used on our assembly. We're using the high strength steel hex nuts grade 8. Then we're going to use the left hand column to size appropriately, which is the 3/4-10 size. The 3/4-10 size. And at the bottom of these options, we want the steel grade 8. Once we click that, we have a product detail available. Click the product detail, scroll to the bottom of the product detail, and ensure that you are using the 3D step option to save that product into your assembly. The product will come to the assembly near the origin. You'll probably have to rotate your view. And we want to attempt to move the bolt near our assembly area where we expect to work. Today we're going to be doing a new type of joint, and it's called revolute. So I'll be teaching you how to make those changes. But one of the first things that's important about fastening these nuts to the bolts, when we assemble a joint and capture position, we want to make sure that the joint origin that we're using actually has the little gray circle with the blue dot right in the very center of that cylinder shape where the cavity of the nut would intersect the bolt. So once we click that correct joint origin, we could next pick the same identical joint origin on our screw that was already in place. And in this particular case, we're talking about a revolute joint and not a rigid joint because these have to turn in order to fasten correctly. So the revolute joint is the correct option for today's joint, and press enter when you're finished. That gets us far enough along that if you place all 4 bolts with nuts, we can begin to talk about the deck panel. The deck panel will obviously go on top of the rest of the assembly. We're going to drag it in and drop it in today. And once we have that in our assembly, again, we're going to try to position it in a place where we can zoom in and perform our joint origin work. I like to have a view set where I can have the most control over my assembly process. I like to use the arrow keys to get it exactly where I want it. And then we'll zoom in very close. Today we will be assembling Today we will be assembling the panel directly onto the top of this purlin. And it will be based off of that surface, which is facing to my right, and this surface, which is facing to my right. However, the software remembered the last revolute joint, and we do not want a revolute joint. We want a rigid joint, so we need to revert that back. And our offset is going to have to come up so that the panel touches the top of the purlin but does not become one with the metal.